So this morning, before I came over, I had a call from a member who's in the hospital. He has a lymphoma, and he's having a major procedure done. And it's been rocky. Lots of bumps along the road, including even today with his body. And it's funny because what I said to him, isn't that interesting? Because you know what I'm talking about today? Patience. Of course, with what he's dealing with, his patience, with what's going on with his body and all the various signs and symptoms and changes and being in the hospital and all that includes, patience is very important. Of course, I asked him how he's doing, and he said, considering the circumstances, he's at peace, he's calm. He says he couldn't do it without the practice. So I said it's interesting again that I'm going to be talking about patience this week. Thank you for reminding me how important it is. But I also want to talk about it because, I talk to lots of members, non-members in the course of life, and it seems as if impatience seems to be very pervasive in our culture. Every culture probably has different things but we seem to be, struggling. Right now we have an intensive, 120 members are involved in an 8-week intensive on developing the altruistic mind, the loving heart, the compassionate heart, the desire to see all beings as worthy of our kindness and consideration and compassion. And yet in lots of members who are in this, and they're all good people, self-observation, what do they notice? Just a lot of irritation with people, with situations, frustration, even anger. At the same time, in their hearts, their aspiration is to be open and kind and loving. I would imagine most of us, at some degree or another, have that aspiration. And yet, patience in the way I'm talking about it today seems to be very difficult to us. So I went to the thesaurus, just so patience has many meanings. Patience, similar words are forbearance, tolerance, restraint, self-restraint, stoicism, fortitude, sufferance, endurance, calmness, composure, even-temperedness, equanimity, serenity. And of course, the opposite, this thing called impatience would be a lack of tolerance, intolerance, a lack of restraint, being unable to restrain our emotions. Fortitude, meaning we have a kind of inner strength that allows us to move through all kinds of adversive conditions without being thrown or disturbed. An endurance, a perseverance, an ability. This is what this member is going through. He has to have a lot of strength and inner strength and perseverance because he's going through a situation that is quite difficult and lots of unknowns. And, in a certain way, a matter of life and death. So there's a great inner strength that is needed. And to have serenity in the midst of that difficulty eludes so many. So why don't we just close their eyes and just take a moment and ask yourself, on this continuum of patience and impatience, calmness, irritation, tolerance, and again, many of us will say, well, I'm a very tolerant people, but how well do we tolerate people that we don't like? How well do we tolerate situations that are uncomfortable? Can I stay calm and serene in the midst of aversive situations of all types? Or is my go-to irritation, frustration, anger, acting out, a lot of emotionality? So just ask yourself, am I a patient person? Am I patient when I'm waiting on a long line? Am I patient when I'm in traffic? Am I patient when the AC is just not right the way I like it? Am I patient when I get bitten by a mosquito? Oftentimes we see patience as like the big things. But am I patient with all the little blips that occur in my life every day? What is my response inwardly? And we do this kind of self-assessment just so we know where we're starting from. It's in no way bad or good. Interesting enough, what I hear a lot, especially from members who are practicing a spiritual path, is not only their impatience with people or things, situations, but often how impatient they are with themselves. That they're not who they want, who they think they should be. Or impatient that they still have wandering thoughts, or still have afflictive emotions, or still have reactivity, or how much impatience we have with ourselves. And really, impatience is a kind of aversion. It's a kind of, it's a kind of anger at situations, at people. So in the Buddhist tradition, patience is often, the opposite of patience is anger. Something that, I don't think we see that way in our culture. Like patience is a virtue, or patience, my sense is there are kind of two ways of doing patience. One way is the kind of top-down, where we impose a certain level of restraint on ourselves. Maybe another phrase would be grin and bear it, and that may often pass as patience. Grin and bear it, or resignation. In the Buddhist tradition, there's a saying, be a log. If you can't do anything else, be a log, which means just don't respond. I often say to people, duct tape it. Just don't say it, put duct tape on over your mouth, even though you may feel it inside. So that's good. So that kind of self-restraint, that kind of imposing patience, because we know if I say or I do, it's going to cause harm, is good. Self-restraint is good. But really what we want to do is come from the inside. That patience is really a inner practice. And in the Buddhist tradition, in the Mahayana tradition of the 6 paramitas, patience, kshanti, is one of the key hallmarks of a well-trained mind. Because without impatience, and we'll talk more about it, and I want to hear from you, it's very easy to have a mind that is always disturbed or very prone to disturbed, but it also puts it at risk for saying or doing ways that can be upsetting or offsetting or off-putting to other human beings. And if we really don't want to do harm, and if we really want to create harmony within ourselves and with others, impatience is a great disturber of that. Actually, the great Buddhist teacher Shantideva, in his Way of the Bodhisattva, said, like years of goodness can be destroyed in one flash of anger. Anybody ever experienced that? Whether within ourselves or when we're the recipient of somebody, And it's very easy how contaminated our mind can be from these flashes of anger, right? And how easily they arise even in the context of relationships that have a lot of goodness, and maybe even having the majority of goodness. Yet when we get into that place of anger, when we get into that place of irritation and frustration, and feel it within ourselves, even if we don't say anything, just reflect. That person that we care about, we're friendly with, we're collegial with, it doesn't just have to be people we live with, family members, people we work with. What happens to all the goodness of that relationship in that moment of anger, irritation? Gone. Gone. And so it is very important that we reflect on this. And I want to talk to you about this, because this is a very common problem. And again, I think it's also because, why is it so pervasive in our society? You talk to most people, like, what are you irritated at today? What's irritated to you today? And I would imagine that if people really thought about it and kept a log, there'd be lots of things. Lots of little tiny things to big things. And so for many of us, this impatient mind, and again, I think it's also because in our life, with just the way things are, and work, and digital media, and things are happening much quicker, right? People are demanding a response much quicker, right? Like, how come you didn't call me? I texted you 10 minutes ago. How come I haven't heard from you? But can you see how in our world these days it's it's moving so quickly that when anything kind of disturbs that movement, how easily people are thrown, right? I mean, people kill each other in road rage, right? We all hear about that. Hopefully we haven't. But what is that about? It's about impatience. Impatience. You're not driving the way I want you to drive. You didn't get over when I wanted you to get over. Impatience, right? Thich Nhat Hanh, it's funny, he calls kshanti, or this paramita of patience, which is usually translated as patience, he called it inclusiveness. Meaning the capacity to receive, embrace, and transform. Very interesting. So what we call patience, and again, I think it really gives the deeper meaning of patience in this way. Because to truly be patient, we have to include everything and everyone. We have to embrace everything and everyone. And that inclusive openness allows us to embrace life as it is, which of course is our practice. But we don't embrace life as it is, do we? Right? We have very clear criteria, right, of what we embrace and what we don't embrace. Right? We will include things in our world, in our life, which are basically the things we like and the things we want. Right? Whether it's the way somebody else is, the way the world is, we will let it in openness, we'll include it if it agrees with, the way we want things to be. But when the world, when people, when situations, when life unfolds in ways that we don't like it to be, expect it to be, want it to be, we don't want to include that in our life experience. We want to what? Get it out. And how do we know that? Because we get impatient or irritated. Right? We can feel it. Impatience is aversion. Right? And many of us, without even knowing it, have consciously and unconsciously divided up the world into the way we want things to be and the way we want people to be and the way we want them to talk to us and treat us and all that. But if it's not that, then we don't want to include that in our experience, do we? Right. I was talking to a young woman who's a member the other day. And she has a lot of angst, anger, fear, sadness. She's young and she's very, there's a lot of that about the world, especially climate change and what's going on. And, she's incredibly frustrated, angry, sad at the unfolding and doesn't seem to be, all efforts do not seem to be working. So I asked her, what do you do for a living? And she's actually training to be a therapist. So I said, so you see patients? She said, yes. And I said, do your patients come in with all kinds of problems? And she said, yes. And in relationship to their problems, do you get angry? Do you get sad? Do you just go into all kind of emotional reaction to them? And she said, no. And I said, well, why not? Well, she said, because I'm there to help them. I'm there to help them. I include, this is my framework, she includes all their suffering. She doesn't go, this should be, this shouldn't be, I want to hear this, I don't want to hear this, or I don't want to hear this story, or I don't want to deal with this. She's open and includes whatever comes her way, and her only job is to what? Can I help? And then I said to her, the world is just like that. Just like that. Right. Can you open to the world and all its problems and all its shortcomings and all its, however way you want to define its problems, and everybody defines it differently. Can you be totally open to it, accept it as it is, because this is real, and, and respond? How do you want to respond? Just like how you respond to your, your patients. How can I help them? How can I understand what's going on with them so I can help them? I said, what if that was your operating mode for the world? Shantideva, he said, in relationship to everything, problems, situations, he said, in the face of problems, never be dejected, never be irritated. He said, because, people go, what? How can that be? He said, because if there's something that can be done to remedy the situation, do it. So you're not dejected. Something can be done. There may be a way to help. And he said, and if you feel there is really nothing that can be done, situation, person, whatever, then you accept it. Because you understand that that's just the way it is. And he said, so again, you're not dejected. You're not angry. So he said there's no reason for us ever to be dejected in the face of adversity. So how do we build this strength of mind? We're really talking about, patience is a strength. It's a constancy. It allows us to enter the world as it is, to deal with people as they are, to deal with all situations, especially aversive ones. I was thinking about that the other day. I was looking at some news thing or reading some columnist, or I forget what I was looking at, but I realized this was politics, right? And I realized that when your people are insulting the other people, you like it. We like it. But when the other side is insulting our people, we're outraged. I thought, isn't that interesting? There it is. Don't you dare insult me. How do we feel when somebody insults us? Anybody ever be insulted? Anybody ever been insulted by? How do you feel? What? Angry. How dare they? How dare they insult us? And yet, if somebody else is getting insulted and we think deserves it, we're quite what? Well, they deserved it. And we feel good. Isn't that funny? So that gives us some insight that we really don't take a stand against people insulting each other. We just don't want people to insult me or the people that I like or agree with. But if they want to go around insulting everybody else, that's great, especially the ones I really don't like. But if everybody thought that way, and unfortunately I think many people do, what kind of world are we supporting? Big picture. Well, yeah, the current one. Yeah. And so we begin to kind of look more deeply into this. So again, we can develop patience by imposing restraint, grin and bear it, put up with it, or we can, doing it, knowing it's the right thing to do, patience is a virtue. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I mean, if it's better than running amok in the world. But a much better one is one that comes from inside. Insight. And that means that it's really coming from a place of understanding and compassion. So that's why Shantideva said patience is the antidote to anger. Thich Nhat Hanh says, inclusiveness, including everything, is the antidote to anger, impatience, irritation. But that is not easy, is it? So, if it's not going to be imposed, like a dictum or an ethical edict or some kind of moral stance or something like that, but as you come from the inside, what do we have to make it real for each of us? And that key is always understanding. And in Buddhism, when we say understanding, what we mean is understanding causes and conditions. So when you get bitten by a mosquito, are you angry at the mosquito? Well, some people may be. But do you really get angry at the mosquito? Like angry at the mosquito? Why not? Why not? What? It's just being a mosquito. And what? They're looking for blood to feed their baby or something. There's some reason, that's understanding, you see. We understand that they can't help themselves, right? If you tripped over the cushion on your way out, you tripped over the cushion and you fell down and you hurt your knee, would you be furious at the cushion? How dare that cushion trip me? Right? Would you know what I mean? Would you be angry and furious at the cushion? No. If we had plans to go to the beach and all of a sudden the dark clouds came in and it started pouring, would you be angry at the clouds for ruining your day? I'm not saying whether you'd be disappointed, but would you be irritated and angry at the weather? How dare it? What? How dare it on a day that I want to go to the beach? Rain. And we go, no, that's ridiculous. So it's very interesting in the world of inanimate things, which often, it seems like these days a lot of people I know who are very, very, embraced every protective protocol during COVID and kept themselves safe for years, are now getting COVID. I don't know if that's happened to you, but it's kind of interesting. It's like COVID's now sneaking around, picking out the ones who, let down your guard. It's just kind of interesting. But do we get angry at the COVID virus for doing this? Are we angry at it? Why not? Why not? It's just doing what it's doing. Right? Are we angry at it for continuing to mutate so it can find new ways to infect people and continue to live? Are we angry at it? We should be. Look at all what it's done. Right? Why aren't we angry? This is important. Why aren't we angry at the COVID virus? What? That is the nature of viruses. That is understanding. Okay. And when there's understanding, it offsets the emotional reaction. There are some people who would kick the cushion and start cursing at it. Right? You might have run into some of these people. Right? Who actually get mad at inanimate things. As if somehow the inanimate world is conspiring against them. Maybe some of us have done that at times. But in our clearer thinking mind, we know, no, that's kind of ridiculous. So when there's understanding that everything that occurs is occurring because of causes and conditions, and this is, again, we can understand that when it comes to the natural world. or the inanimate world. But what happens when it comes to human beings? Are we so understanding? No. We say what? They shouldn't do that. Right? They shouldn't say that. Is that true? Yeah. And we get angry. We get, people shouldn't be driving the way they are. Anybody ever get angry at a driver? Who wants to raise their hand and admit? Yeah, right? Do we know the driver? No, we don't know anything about him. And yet we're angry at them because why? Why are we angry at them? Because we say what? They should know better. Yeah. And to me, whenever I hear that statement, I think that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard, because they just demonstrated that they don't know better. You see what I'm saying? In reality, of course they don't know better, or they would have, if they knew better, they wouldn't be doing it. And how often do we say that about human beings? They should know better. Right? And yet the truth is, they don't. They should have done a better job, right? Isn't that true? Right? How many people, you work with people, or you have kids, give them a task, they don't do it the way it's supposed to be done, and what do we say? We get irritated, we get angry, they should know better. But they don't know better. And maybe part of the failure is we didn't take the time to really make sure we really explained and trained and oversaw, but we never like to do that to ourselves, do we? We never like to take responsibility. So, patience can be developed when there's understanding, like the way I just said, and when there's compassion. Compassion means I understand that people who act this way or do this way in some way are suffering from something. Right? So there's understanding and there's compassion. Even if I need to act, I don't act out of anger. I don't act out of intolerance, because I'm inclusive. I accept everything in the world is as it is. And, now what? What can I do to help? How can I help this person? How can I help this situation? How can I help the world? Is there anything to be done? That's where to put our energy. But instead we go into the loop of what? Irritation and anger, and anger loops. Anybody ever notice that? Anger loops. Impatient loops. And it's often when we are irritated at someone and a little angry about this, we may find that it colors our mind state. Right? And all of a sudden we may find we're not in a good mood anymore. We're not that loving to that person we say we love. Right? Just like that, we change. Why? Because they haven't done what we want them to do, or they've done something I don't want them to do. And all of a sudden our capacity for love and understanding is out the window. Right? And we're very much have entered the world of self. And in our desire to be more open, more inclusive, more altruistic, more all the things we want to do, more patient, the real stick in the mud, so to speak, is our strong sense of self, which manifests really as all our likes, our dislikes, our ideas about how things should be, how life should be, how people should be, how the world should be, That's all tied to a strong sense of self. And everybody has that. You see? Everybody has that. And if we are in a world where everybody is stuck on themselves and wants the world and everybody else to be the way it is and unfold the way we want them to fold and bend to our will, this is a world of what? Conflict. Endless conflict. Which is somewhat of a sense of the world we live in now, isn't it? A lot. I mean, there's lots of goodness and lots of that. Yeah. So patience. Let me just stop. Any questions about what's been talked about now? There are people in the hall, people online. Any questions just about what's been shared so far? Anything not clear? Anybody disagree with anything? Anybody want to stand up for impatience? Don't be shy. I mean, it's all very open here. You can. Yes. Just wait. We have lots of people online, so it's for them.
My name's Amy.
Yes, Amy.
And I guess what I wanted to bring up was it seems like impatience is contagious. And so, if I have moments where I'm getting frustrated or irritated or something, then it might kind of bleed over to my husband or vice versa, or employees and colleagues.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that and how we catch ourselves?
Well, I'm gonna start talking about what to do. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna leave. I'm just saying, up to now, is there any kind of questions? But what you said is very true. That is. Yeah, it's it's contagious. Goodness is contagious. The opposite of goodness is contagious. Kindness is contagious. Unkindness is contagious, right? And that's, that is the one area of control in terms of the world that we have some control over, which is very important, What do I want to put into this world? And we often think, unfortunately, many of us, we think like grandiosity, I'm going to change the world. Well, how about starting with changing ourselves? I mean, that's doable. The world may take some time. Right? But, right. Yeah. And to realize we are all connected, and especially each of us have our world of relationships. I mean, that's basically how we connect to the world. We connect to the world through relationships. That's, we are people in relationship to lots of things. Even though we often see ourselves as standing alone, but just like Amy said, when you begin to see, because what we're usually focused on is how people are affecting me. But to understand, I am affecting people, both positively and negatively. And so, my own ability to, have a wholesome mind and have wholesome emotional states, and having a capacity to speak in a way that is constructive and helpful is very important. That's like every time we open our mouth, we're contributing to the world. And many of us are very unmindful of our speech. But every time we open our mouth, we are contributing something to the world. In our actions, we're contributing to the world. because it ripples. Right? And just like you say, you're in a bad mood, you kind of share that a little bit. Other people get in a bad mood because you're in a bad mood. They get now in a bad mood at Amy, because they, right? Then they're in a bad mood, and then they're going to share it, and these things ripple. And when you see the world as this kind of interconnected web of which we're part of, we realize, in my world, I am constantly creating ripples in all my interactions with people. Both what I do and by what I refrain from doing. Both by what I say and by what I refrain from saying. Because we're very concerned about the world and people, right? And we want to be wholesome. Yes, there's some, and then we'll move on. Yes, Brent?
What about wishing that there were consequences for behaviors that are hurting others?
What about wishing there were consequences for hurting others? So we wish there were negative consequences for people who hurt others. Yeah. Again, if there's something to be done, do it. If there's nothing to be done, I'm not sure about that. We wish for the well-being of others. We wish for people who suffer to be free of their suffering. We wish for people to be protected, right, and safe. I guess, a wanting there to be consequences. But it's so strange in this world. People have different definitions of who the bad ones are. Have you noticed that? There may be some people here who other people think are the ones that should be having consequences put on them. Is that true? It's very interesting. So that's an interesting road to go down. We have to think, is that really a good road? Because if I wish for negative consequences to somebody else, and they're wishing for negative consequences for me, and then we start manifesting in that way, what is the result? Take a guess. What? Pain for everyone. So there's a lot of time that we have to, again, this is, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but, I might as well just say, slowing it down. We are so quick to react, right? We're so quick. It's funny, I recently got in my latest update, what's my Apple program? I have Apple or something. But they said, you now have the ability of, for, 10 seconds or a minute, to pull back the email you just sent. Is that right? That's like a latest edition? What? Yeah, and it's like, and you understand why, because why? Texting is, we got to slow it down. Think about what we're doing, the effects of what we're doing. And, this takes reflection, which means, again, we got to slow down. So let me just say about, if we want to cultivate patience, begin small. Okay? Building strength. You want to build strength. This is a muscle. It's not going to happen overnight. pay attention to all the ways throughout the day that you're just a little impatient about something. Right? Something's not arriving when you want it to arrive. Or again, the temperature or the traffic or somebody says or does, these little things, little blips. What kind of things irritate you? Like little things during the day make you just push your little uncomfortable buttons. What? The heat, right. Yeah. So when the heat is not as past your level of comfortability, your response is what? Exasperated, which means you're impatient. Change. Yeah. So all these various things, right? Yeah. The heat, And again, I always get a kick out of going on retreat with people, because often the thermostat is a major bone of contention, right? Because some people what? Want it up. Some people want it down, right? Some people are comfortable, and that's right. So somebody's pleasure is somebody's unpleasure, right? Somebody's happy and somebody's irritated. Why are they, why don't they turn it up? Why don't they turn it down? And we get irritated. We get impatient. Things aren't happening as quick as we want them to happen. Things aren't happening as fast as we want them to happen. Impatience. How else are we impatient during the day? Little things. What? Forgotten passwords. We're impatient with ourselves. I can't believe I forgot. Little things. The kind of just little think about all the things. The coffee's not done on time, or I got to wait online, or it's gotten cold, or it's gotten hot, or it's right. Or the mosquitoes buzzing in my ear, or I don't feel the way I want to feel, or right. Any other? Yeah? People, if there's one, yeah. People don't use their turn signals. Can you believe it? Right? Yeah. We get irritated. I can't believe these people. And they have a turn signal. And they're yeah, right. You see what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, and we get irritated, we get angry because we can't include, coming back to Thich Nhat Hanh's definition of inclusiveness, we can't include people who don't use turn signals in our world. We don't want them in our world. We don't want them on the road. Right? Yeah. Music on hold. Oh. How about just being on hold? Right? Is that a pleasant experience for most of us? We're very patient. When you're put on hold, how long does your patience last?
It's even shorter when they tell you about the app that you can get on.
Right. Yeah, they want to give you lots of information. They want to direct you in another way. They keep saying somebody will be with you shortly. Thank you for your patience, they even say. Yeah. All these little things in daily life just drive us nuts. Anybody else? These little things. People, can you believe it? Because in your world, the most important thing is what? Of course. Right. And so we get irritated when anything, not even people, when anything gets in the way of us, of our life unfolding the way we want it to unfold. We get irritated, impatient. Right? Anybody have these, like when you're trying to go to a website or something and the thing goes round and round? How about that? I mean, isn't that like a major impatience? Just keeps going round and round. Anybody else? Pain, little, but yeah, pain can be big or just little. Yeah, I mean, if you think, how am I just with the little discomforts of having a body? Am I okay with that, or is it irritating or frustrating, or I don't want to have that, or I shouldn't have that, Anything else? Impatient? What? Hungry. Don't like to be hungry, do you? Well, we get angry, right? We get a little angry, impatient because we're, Anybody ever have to wait in a restaurant for them to give you your order, and it doesn't come right when you want it? How about that for a major cause for a meltdown? Huh? Trying to reach a live, right? Oh, please, yeah. Right, and then they send you to another. When you finally get them, they send you to somebody else. Then they send you somebody else, and then you get cut off. Right? Anybody else have ever had that? You see, we're all going, oh, this is common. But when it's personal, you see, we think it's, because what's most important to us? Me, my business, my call. Yeah. So, so this member is in the hospital. He's got lymphoma. He's dealing with kind of a life or death, very serious kinds of things. And he's cultivating patience, understanding, including whatever happens into his understanding of life. But how do you get this kind of strength to deal with the big ones? In the teachings it says, begin small. If I cannot tolerate, if I cannot be patient with the little blips in life, how am I going to ever handle the big stuff? Is that clear? So patience is a strength. And when you are practicing patience because you know it's a strength that you need, that be good for you, good for your mind, then when you're caught in traffic, you go, what? Great opportunity. Great opportunity for me to practice patience, because my go-to is impatience, right? Now, there may be 1,000 other cars on the road, but do we care about them and where they want to get to? Absolutely not. We're only concerned about what? Me. Because in my world, who's most important? Me. Okay. Yeah. So all of a sudden, these little moments in life, right, become training points. If I can't deal with some degree of heat, I'm not talking about heat that'll cause heat stroke, but some degree of heat, if I get so bent out of shape, how am I ever going to deal with the big stuff? You see what I'm saying? So when you're turning patience into a practice, again, begin, watch just the little blips in life, all the little irritations, those moments when we thought, we just are, all the little uncomfortabilities of daily life. Right? Can I be okay with them? Can I include them into my world with understanding and compassion, forbearance, as a way to build strength? That's okay. Self-talk. It's like when I just quoted Shanti Deva before about, is there something that can be done? Right? You just ask yourself, is there something that can be done? Is there something to be done? Is there nothing to be done? Is this one of those situations that I got to accept? Or this is a situation that I can do something about? Then let me do it. But, how we talk to ourselves about what's going on is very important. What's that conversation? Yeah. Just saying the things we talked about earlier. They are just a product of their causes and conditions. This is not personal. Remember I said the weather, we don't get angry at the weather, but we get angry at people because we think they shouldn't be the way they are. But they are the way they are. And why are they the way they are? If you had grown up in their family and had every life experience that they've had, you'd be showing up in the world just like them. Is that true? Hard to admit. It's true. You know, there's a great saying in the Bodhisattva tradition. It says, when somebody is hitting you with a stick, are you angry at the stick or are you angry at the person? Do you get furious at the stick for hitting you? Do you? Why not? A tool of the person. Okay. That is used as the analogy for saying people are the tools of their own causes and conditions. They are the product of the past, and that is what's acting through them. Right? They're the stick. You know, what's his name? Forgive me for saying what's his name. Gandhi. You know, I mean, he said, you know, hate the sin, not the sinner. You know. Right. So we need to develop understanding and compassion. And especially for ourselves. I mean, you know, Betsy and they can be doing a self, you know, inner critic. I mean, what's that all about? You know, it's really about impatience. We can't accept ourselves. We're impatient with ourselves as we are. You know, we're impatient with our mistakes, with our shortcomings, with our all the things. That's impatience. We can't accept ourselves as we are with understanding and compassion. Little quote, if a farmer wants a harvest, they need to be patient and let the crop grow. If they pull up the seedlings, there'll be no harvest. Which means what? We are, the world is a work in progress. Right? It's a work in progress. We have to be patient. You know, somebody just sent me up from Naples. I love mangoes. They know I love mangoes. They sent me up the 3 most beautiful big mangoes. When the person who brought them up gave it to me, I was so happy. They were so happy that I was happy. But guess what? They're not ripe yet. You know what that means? I have to wait. These are the little... You know, if I'm impatient with the ripening of a mango, how can I be patient with the ripening of the world and human beings? I mean, this is the way I talk to myself. You know what I mean? It's kind of silly, but you know, I could really feel, you know, I really wanted to cut right into one. You have to be patient, Fred. Yeah, you know, it's okay. Talk to yourself. You know, many of us do not have good self-talk. We either have bad self-talk, which is not very helpful, or we have kind of no self-talk. But it's in this practice of transformation, we need good self-talk. Right? We need to be able to say wise, intelligent, supportive, kind, compassionate things to ourselves. Is that clear? It's very important. We overlook that a lot. You know, meditation is not going to save you. Meditation by itself is not going to transform you. It's part of a process. You know, we need many things to water us. And one of the things we need to do is change the way we think, and especially change the way we talk to ourselves. Think about ourselves, think about life.